thank you everyone for staying with us. To put our first conversation on the road this morning, we're joined by Chibuzo Okereke. He's a policy analyst as well as a public commentator. He joins us live via Zoom from Abuja, Nigeria's capital, to help find some insights and perspectives as it has to do with the state of our correctional facilities across Nigeria. Chibuzo, thank you for jumping on the Monday's edition of Global Morning. All right, great. So I'm just going to start off with asking you what exactly it is with our correctional facilities across the country, which many people would popularly call prisons, because we understand up until this point, I mean, 24 years into a new millennium, prisons are still referred to as colonial era. Help us make sense of that real quick. Okay, it appears we're having a bit of a hitch with the connection to our guest. Let's see how soon we can quickly fix that up and then get him back on. But the conversation essentially centers around the state of correctional facilities in Nigeria. Of course, we're seeing more than a handful of jailbreaks across this country, whether it's Kuje, of course, you go to the southeast, you go to even the south, particularly in Edo, for example. The NSAS is a reminder that readily comes to mind. You go up to the southwest, it's the same story. Of course, it hasn't been a different development pretty much up north as well. But in all of this, what are the socio-economic implications? All right, what does this say about whether or not we're paying adequate attention, if at all, to the states of our correctional facilities in this country? No records to show if Nigeria has built any new prisons. We are not so sure of how much of renovation work or rehabilitation has been done with regards to our prisons, which apparently explains the reason the label or appellation colonial era. But in all, the question is, can we today confidently say that our prisons or our correctional centers are secure enough to make the people feel safe, secure enough to serve the purpose for which they were designed in the first instance? These are questions to which we're finding answers in the course of our discussion with Chibuzo Okereke this morning on the program. We're taking a quick break. When we return, we'll have him on. We understand that we've been able to get passed on to Chibuzo Okereke right now. So, Chibuzo, I was asking a while ago, but first off, I'd like to say thank you for taking our time to join us on the program. Hello, Chibuzo, can you hear us? It will appear we're having some sort of audio glitch with that connection, but that has been corrected right now, so we can find some sense in these developments, because there are also policy issues around this challenge. There are issues around standards, and then of course you have issues around reforms. So we understand we have audio now. So Chibuzo, once again, welcome to Global Morning. Yeah, Chibuzo, I assume you can hear us. Good morning and welcome to the program. It appears this is a persistent headache, right? At that point where they say you have to see a doctor, right? Okay, let's take a quick break now so we can check in with the doctor for a second. Okay, so it appears we're better now. Chibuzo, good morning again. Yeah, Chibuzo, can you hear us now? All right, great. I would like to appreciate you for taking out time to join us on Global Morning today. Okay, so we'll take a quick break, everyone. We'll return shortly with the program. Okay, doctor says we've been given a clean bill of health now. Okay, good morning, Chibuzo. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
All right, we apologize for the hassle and all of the rigors, but then the good thing was we're on now. So I was asking a while ago, this is 24 years into the 21st century, Nigerian correctional centers, otherwise or popularly called prisons, are still referred to as colonial era. What does that say?
Well, I think there are many variables to it. First, um, maybe because of cultural or religious belief or just the way our society is organized. We have not paid attention to the issue of correctional service in Nigeria. And that is evident in the way we have implemented the various statutory instruments around around the correctional service. If you remember, we had the prison service for many years, even as colonial legislation. And then I think in 2019, as the around the globe, there were this agitation to the fact that those in prisons also have human rights. and that we need to kind of invest in them so that we can reintegrate them into society to continue to contribute value to community and society. And that brought about the global push for many of the centers who are referred to as prisons to now be renamed as correctional centers so that people, as they are going there, they are not going with a kind of stigmatization that cannot be changed. They are going that this is a punishment, that is a correction for an act they have done that is against society or against the law. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, I think when we passed that law, what we were able to do is to change the signposts across all the correctional service center. Nothing else changed, and the law was robust in providing all the things that needs to happen for it to move from being prisons to correctional center. But we simply change all the signposts across all the prisons to from prison to correctional center, and nothing else changed. In 2023, also there was a constitutional alteration to remove the correctional service center from the exclusive list to concurrent list. Unfortunately, since that time till now, no subnational had even focused attention on making any law as to localize or domesticate the correctional service center within the state. Meanwhile, most of them have been making efforts to localize the electricity regulation law, and both of these laws received the same legislative action, the same time, the same period. But everybody is focusing attention on the one that will give revenue to them rather than the correctional service center. So that is why the perception has remained so, and to the fact that most of the physical structures across time has remained the one built by the colonial masters, who have not even invested into the prison, because there is this idea that, oh, the way society also perceive it. The truth is that as long as there is law and order in society, you have to have people that will be in prison, because the law must commit people to do offenses that could take them to prison. So the prisons, or the correctional service center as we now prefer, is an integral part of governance and building society and development of a country. Because if you don't take care of the people that are there, then you're also breeding them to come back and unleash even more harm to society. So we have not seen, as you know very well, any significant investment. And I don't, in this respect, I may not blame the politicians totally, because no politician will go to any place and campaign and say that, remember, I built the prison in this community. If you say that, you'll probably be losing votes, because of how people perceive incarceration and perceive, they see, we have not accepted that the consequence for an offense should not be forgiveness. That even if it is that the correctional center should also be perceived as the forgiveness of the law, just like you have spiritual forgiveness, for those in the Christian faith. So if you're committed to the correctional center, it's actually a form of forgiveness to get you rehabilitated for what you've done. But society have not accepted that, and that is probably why you don't see investment from the government into that, because politicians like what they will use to campaign. That you could also see many governors are not able to even sign the final. If somebody is on death sentence, you will require the governor to sign execution. If you go to many states, you have many of these on the desk of the governor, and because of probably their religious faith, culture, or belief, they are not able to take up that responsibility. So there is more to it in terms of our own African belief, culture, religion, and what have you. And that is, these are variables that impact on the kind of development and investment you see with the correctional service centers.
It's interesting. My colleague Queen will be asking you a few questions as well shortly. She's on the program with me. But I want to ask you this, Chibuzo. Now, you go to a place like the US, there's a private sector element, very strong private sector element in the way their prisons are run. It's been like that for decades. Is it possible for a country like Nigeria that has, as it were, adopted, I mean, I use that word advisedly, the American variant of democracy or model of democracy, to also say, can we not domesticate, or if you like, copy the private sector variable in the way the prison system is run in the US?
Well, I can tell you that what is lacking here is responsibility and accountability. The private sector is vitally involved. In fact, without the private sector, like the churches, the mosques, the NGOs in Nigeria, the prison or the correctional centers will be a very terrible place. If you go there, most of the television you see, they are installing television, installing DSTV, providing chairs, providing groceries and sanitary provisions. All manner of things are being provided by different NGOs and the church and mosque groups and even private individuals. Unfortunately, there is no accountability. There is no framework for that. It is not also structured. There are no, kind of arrangement to integrate that properly. You saw, and it also goes to the way we implement policies and regulation. When the correctional service officials came to defend their 2024 appropriation proposal, you saw them being asked questions. How many dogs do you have? How much do you use to feed a dog in a day? How much do you use to feed a prisoner in a day? You saw the drama that ensued at the National Assembly. So we are dealing with a question of capacity gap or simply deliberate effort not to do the right thing and focus on the right thing. So, and that is why I say that you have to first of all recognize that the purpose of the correctional center is an integral part of national development. That what we do there could actually contribute to building the society. Then how you function and organize your work will be able to, affect the people that are there. And you can tell that because of poverty level, most people too want to go to the correctional service center where they will be receiving food because some of the state laws, and that is another point, the state laws, all manner of laws, environmental law, all kinds of sanitation law that are putting people behind bars and then force the government to feed them is another challenge. And you saw the intervention of the Minister of Interior, where I understand he raised over 500 million to pay fines because some people that are owing fine of 100,000 have been in the correctional center, who is costing the government more to maintain them than the cost of the fine they have been charged with. So it's also about efficiency and economy of administration of the criminal justice system. How do you put somebody on a fine of 100,000 and is the person that remain in the center? And we have spent more taking care of the person than the charge on it. So it's not economical, it's not efficient, it's not cost effective. So all these things are fair. I agree. Just like the Police Act in 2020 has a provision for private police that have not been implemented. In the Correctional Service Act that repealed and reenacted, there are sufficient provision there for multi-stakeholder participation and contribution. It is about those responsible for implementing those laws, understanding the spirit of the law, and then taking steps to operationalize the provisions of the law, which is not happening. Sitting down and just complain about receiving meager allocation to your agency or whatever is not the solution that we need. In the correctional service centers, we have models. Yeah, we have to change even our laws to the kind of punishment people are given. because we understand that other countries utilize their correctional service center inmates for more productive contribution to the economy than what we see in Nigeria. In the past, they can be deployed to handle machines for farming. They can learn skills and put it. Most of the contract we spend money on in government buildings, those that are in correctional service center can actually be equipped and trained to provide some of these services, and Nigeria would gain more from it, because when you commit a crime, we can look at positive contribution as punitive measure, which you could make inmates see a good side of him, that because people that are into crime have a lot of variables and background to it. There's a kind of punitive measure applied that will help the person to know that yes, and that is the notion, the concept of having moving from prison to correctional center is actually to deal with this kind of situation where inmates are able to recognize skills they have in a confined environment and deploy it for national development. Yeah.
Well said, Mr. Chibuzo. Now, we've had a lot of people are talking, especially as regards the state of correctional prisons and how people are convicted, how overpopulated these prisons are, how overcrowded it is. And the question I was going to ask you did give some bit of answers to it as to when people are fined. For example, for an offense, you're fined for 100,000 and a fine of 100,000, or you'll be remanded in prison. How do we go about this so that we reduce overcrowdedness in the prison in a situation where this person cannot pay that fine, and the alternative there would be to reprimand that person in prison? What do we do? How do we now begin to resolve issues like this, and how do we begin to ensure that people are duly convicted for crimes that they committed?
Yeah, thank you very much. And that is the reason to have a robust criminal justice system that is not just applying provisions of the law, but looking at the spirit of the law. When punitive provisions are made in the law, it is not strict to censor for somebody to say, oh, because this crime is 2 years, or with option of a fine of this, you just charge the person the fine. You could, when you see the person, you know if he's able to. Some punishment could, by the discretion of the judge within the spirit of the law, lead to certain labor service you can render in a supervised and confined manner. If you have been checked, you cannot pay fine of 100,000. You can see the little boy was found on the street loitering, and the police accused him of something or whatever. They brought him there. He said, somebody have not eaten 2,000 in a day, and he is to pay 50,000. He will not answer you now. You follow you people to that place, no matter the condition. He even see it as a shelter for him. He remains there, and that is why it just adds to the number. Also, I'm worried that if you ask Nigeria today, how many inmates do you have across our prisons? And you'll be getting approximately about this. You hear that in the police. How many police officers do we have? I can't understand. I mean, why data is such a problem, if not for purposes of corruption. Inmates are human beings. They are accountable. They are accountable nouns. They are not, you cannot approximate a human being. There is no one and a half prisoner or what have, even if the person doesn't have 2 legs or 2 hands. So we should be able to give a good account of the number of people we have in the prisons. One, because these are part of the fact that should be supplied to a judge who is about to remand somebody. Because if the judge knows the capacity of a prison is 2,000, and as at today, while this judgment is to be delivered, we already have 3,000 in that. Why would the judge still ask the person to be, remanded? Remanded where? Where is the person going to be accommodated? So that should be looked at also critically. Another situation is using the example of the Minister of Interior. We can now rechannel the energy of some of the intervention we are getting from the private sector and NGOs. They can have a trust fund account dedicated for payment of small fines so that we don't go and put people that their fine are not much or their crime is not, kind of heinous crime. Instead of sending the person to the prison or to the correctional center, waiting for when his people who don't even know that he's in that place will gather money to pay fine. We can now use the trust fund to pay off that fine, give the person a manual labor, to do within the society, and supervise the person. After doing that manual labor for 1 week or two or a month, the person is discharged. So the state benefits in two ways. You have tapped into trust fund by the private sector and NGOs, rather than, when an NGO visits a correctional service center, they will tell you to provide the things government has already given them money to provide. And this has been alleged by many people. When these private individuals provide these things, you will still see them being invoiced and paid for from the government allocations. So it doesn't make sense. So we're even confused as to intervention supposed to enhance and improve what we have allocated from government coffers. However, it just, net in, net out, without it adding to it, because somebody is not doing what he's supposed to do, and that is very wrong.
The state of our correctional centers, like you rightly put it, I like how you put it, is very integral to nation building. And we're not just even talking about correctional centers alone. This cuts across other aspects of Nigeria's economy and nation building. We see that most facilities are dilapidated, they are bad, and until something happens, until there's a collapse or something happens, and then we are trying to fix things up, trying to patch things up. An instance would be the Suleja prison. Here now that it's being proposed that the location will be moved somewhere else. Or after this incident, we know these are unforeseen circumstances, the rain, but we should, to an extent, ensure that there is renovation. How properly are these facilities checked? What measures are in place? How do we, what do we do to ensure that, disasters like this do not, at the blink of an eye, sway buildings and bring them down? What measures do we put in place to ensure that there's regular checks in buildings, government facilities, and all that, not just our prisons alone?
Yeah, I agree with you. And for many years, people have been talking about maintenance culture. Oh, if you go to the federal secretariat today, you could see these are edifices that are national monuments and symbolizes, a pride for the nation. But most of them have been dilapidated. Today, what it will take to maintain and rehabilitate the various buildings in the federal secretariat, if we mention to Nigerians, they will shout and say, please leave it that way. We prefer to, but a lot of things, countries are not run that way. And this is why I believe that those in government should be visionaries. You see, things don't just happen. It is human beings that make things to happen. You cannot build, a structure of that magnitude, and there is no sinking fund designed to make sure that you provide for the maintenance of such national assets. Because at the time we built it, if we want to build it now, it will cost us almost 100 times what we spend because of inflation, economic issues, and what have you. And that is why smart nations design a sinking fund system for national asset protection. You must create a system that ensure and monitor to make sure that those systems work, not wait until the whole dilapidation have become visible, the structural integrity of those buildings have become questionable. People are now receiving advisory, please, so don't follow this part of the building, follow here. We saw no. And this is happening in almost all the government buildings. In fact, you may be surprised that if you go to a villa, you're experiencing the same thing. And that is why people like us have called, we need to really change how governance is arranged. Every governance arrangement must be local to the need that the people have, especially the national, not some kind of template you got from somewhere. If in the correctional centers, for instance, do you have the civil engineering department? Do you or is that who checks when a building has stayed up to certain number of years? Certain civil engineering component may become you may need to audit it to know whether on your own you need to bring them down and rebuild it and not wait. And that is why we talk about being proactive, not being reactionary like we see. And that is putting the government in the bad light, because if you're not checking something, monitoring and taking action, things will always happen. You come every time and say, I assure you this, I assure you that. You can actually prevent a lot of assurances by doing certain level activities that will protect those things. But also when things like this happen, like what we saw in Suleja, it brings the government attention to the dysfunctional arrangement in way the system works. Because actually what was contained in the handover note, a brief given to the ministers when they came in. When there is a transition of government, the handover notes that come from each agency or ministry should be total. It should be a comprehensive report touching on all aspects. So if that has been done, it will now inform the kind of budgetary allocation and where the focus, where that ministry or agency will direct each funding for the year, looking at emergency issues, priority issues, and issues of national importance. I'm also aware that there are categories of correctional centers. You have maybe primary, secondary, and tertiary. The maximum prisons are the ones for criminals, high-level criminals, and terrorists and what have you. But this primary and secondary level are dealing with other levels of crime can actually become a school. It can actually be built like a university deliberately, you know, having just for the purpose of rehabilitating, so that if it can, there's an incentive. When you are there, you know that your life will not remain the same. What you could not get in the society, you are able to get there and come back and see the value in you. Because most people who commit crime and do all kinds of things they do, when you interrogate, crime is not good and nobody is advised to do so, and there is no excuse for crime. But I can tell you there are environmental, economical, family, cultural, compelling, reasons why people get into some petty crimes and what have you. And those kind of people, correctional center become an opportunity for them to add value to their life and contribute to national development. So yes, I think that we should reorganize the way we do things, and the Minister of Interior also should immediately call. Right now, we know the number of prisons we have. We know where they are located. We know when they were built. We know how old they are. So somebody should do a comprehensive report per prison, per state, per zone, per whatever. And then there should be an interagency engagement right now at an intergovernmental working group to now look at how do we, now that Correctional Service Center is in the concurrent list, how do we in the federal, who have operated this for so many decades, help the state to build capacity to take responsibility for the level of correctional service centers they should be responsible for, when for crimes that are not terrorism or high level criminal cases and all that. That should happen. You have to, so you have created a law Let us not wait politically when they want to help them now with a technical working group to domesticate those laws and take responsibility for, developing correctional centers within their zone. And a lot of advocacy needs to be done, because any village you go to now and say we want to bring prison, they still call it prison. They still see prison. They understand what that means. They have not. They don't see it as a development. So if you say school, they are happy. You say hospital, they are. If you tell any a group, oh, government want to locate prison in, they can reject and say. So that is cultural. This is what advocacy need to break. Let people understand that, oh, because they think, okay, some people say, if you bring prison, it means criminals are being brought to our place. One day they will escape and rob us and do. So the society has not accepted the Correctional Service Center, despite changing the name from prison to Correctional Service Center. So we need a lot of advocacy, literacy, mass enlightenment to understand that this we cannot do without this. It's part of society, it's part of national development.
Okay, so on a final note, I'm just going to get you to speak to this. Minister of Interior, as it stands today, Olubumi Tunji-Ojo, a man who has been adjudged by many to be doing an amazing work with regards to reforms and some sort of disruptive methods that he has adopted. But then this is a man also that some persons would argue that has a full plate. By that, they're saying he has to provide leadership for the Nigerian Civil Defense Corps, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, that is the NSCDC. And then you have the Nigerian Immigration Service, you have the Fire Service, and then on top of all that, you have the prisons. Is this bulk of work not enough to make it almost impossible, maybe extremely difficult at least, for him to pay as much attention to the prison system in this country as he's expected to?
No, you see, the ministries are not legal entities. These are administrative bodies created to exercise supervision and oversight. All the ministers need to do is not too much. For me, what is important is what kind of leadership do you have at the various agencies, the fire service, the correctional service, the civil defense, and all that. So, because the law created those agencies, and there are specific duties, there are specific functions and powers they have. So if you have the right leadership there, the minister cannot spend his time thinking for those agencies. It's not the minister's job, except we are getting governance wrong. Even the minister has some good ideas. He directs it to the agency to do a memo, conceptualize it, develop the concept, and how it will be operationalized. Where it needs the minister's approval, you just send the document with your blue form summarizing the policy intent and the required action. He will look at it with his team technically and then approve if that is necessary. So he is supervising oversight and providing supervision. So there is nothing too much around it except you want to take over the functions of the agencies. And these agencies are a creation of the law. But I agree with the way Nigeria has been over time. Leadership is required, and that brings a burden to those who are ministers and really want their agencies to work. For instance, if the president talk about policy coordination units, monitoring and evaluation, setting targets, and what is the key performance indicators that has been passed from that coordination unit to the Ministry of Interior? What has been cascaded to the different agencies under the Interior Ministry? We see the effort in the immigration that is going on. But while we try to do those transformations, we should also look at the welfare of the member. We should also look at the recruitment system. We also look at how the entire system works, locally, and not just what appears, at the national level. So for me, There is nothing too much about it, because if you go down to the ministry, a full structure exists with independent leadership, self-accounting system they have. They practically only goes for the minister for approval at certain threshold. Yes, but in terms of implementing policies, they cooperate together to implement it. And that is also part of the reason I am calling for agencies and their ministers to work together. Ministers should not lord themselves over agencies and try to become a mini president of the agencies under them. There is no law that provides for that. So when they work together, then they will be able to achieve more. Across other ministries, there are ministries today where the agency heads have not been able to access their minister because of all kinds of arrangements and all that. So we have seen it in the past, where some agency head go to wait for their minister somewhere for 2 weeks. They are yet to see the minister. All those kind of things should stop. And the policy coordination unit should have that. But I think that the Minister of Interior is equal to the task. He's young, he's vibrant, he has shown
Rightly said.
capacity, but he should also allow the agencies to take initiatives, and he will support them to achieve it. So it's not just about him, but about the entire system.
Yeah, truly, not just about him, but the entire system. Very clearly articulated. Many thanks, Mr. Chibuzo Okereke, for your time with us. We hope that you grace our platform again.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Do have a beautiful day ahead. Okay.
Interesting points he raised
yes,
there
he
about the
very-
prison system. Of course, this is an institution, all right. So, approach to providing leadership and bringing reform should also be systemized in such a way that we don't sing the praises of one minister at a point, maybe for 3-4 years, as the case may be, who is doing an amazing work, and then by the time they leave office, it will appear we've made 3 steps forward and 10 backwards, that kind of thing, right?
Yes, yeah.
All right, we're taking a quick break
Clearly.
here, everyone. Our second and last conversation will come on in a few minutes. Do stay with us.